Hello everyone and welcome to Sum, Count, and Beyond, the Spreadsheet Source, Session 8. Today we will be learning about the HLOOKUP and match functions. In the About section and in the banner image of our channel, you will see a link to a Google Drive folder that has the spreadsheets from all of the sessions. Each file will have at least 2 tabs, Try It Yourself and Solution. We would encourage you to have your own sheet open or download the file and follow along as we go through our examples together. Before we jump in, don't forget to give us a like and subscribe to our channel. Let's get to it. In addition to learning about the HLOOKUP and match functions, we will also be introducing 2 new things to our example files, a data tab and real-world data. As a best practice, we like to keep all of our data on one tab and all of our calculations and transformations on another. In some cases, we will create one raw data tab, so we always have the original data, and a second curated data tab, where we may modify some data or delete columns and or rows. We also like to color our data in other tabs to separate them out. For example, the tab BLS Data Series is red because it is raw data and we do not want to touch it. And to change the tab color, what you'll do is you'll come down to the tab, do a right click, and then you can change the tab color to whatever you'd like. Speaking of our data tab, today we will be working with unemployment data provided by both your tax dollars and the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Government websites such as the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the Bureau of Economic Analysis, and the Federal Reserve Economic Data, aka FRED, are great resources not only for live data sets, but also for any economic research you may want to do. Back to our regularly scheduled programming. In the spirit of full disclosure, I have never needed to use HLOOKUP, but you may come across a situation where it is needed, and that is, as always, why we are here to help. I do use match frequently, and we will show you why combining the two is a good idea. Horizontal lookup, HLOOKUP for short, is one of Excel's lookup functions and allows you to return a data value from a table based on how far below the top row of data it is. In words, the formula is equals HLOOKUP, open parentheses, the value you want to look up, comma, the range that contains the value and other data, comma, how many rows to go down, and whether the match should be approximate or exact, close parentheses. Confused yet? Don't worry, we will practice it shortly. Before practicing, there are a few items to be aware of when using HLOOKUP. First, the value you are looking up must be in the first row of the range. Second, the function will only look up the first instance of the value, so if your row has duplicates, HLOOKUP will stop at the first one. Third, the row count for how far to go down always starts with the first row of the range. So as an example, if your lookup is in row 1 and you want to pull data from row 2, you would enter 2 to go down 2 rows. So before we do the HLOOKUP, let's look at our data to make sure that our first row has unique values in every cell. So we'll go to our BLS Data Series tab, and we're going to select from A1 through M1. And so we'll do Command Shift or Control Shift right to highlight the data, and we'll hit Control C. And then we're going to go down to E23, and we're going to do Control Command V or Alt Command V to open up the Paste Special menu. And from here, we're going to type V or select the Values radio button. And then we're also going to do E or click the Transpose checkbox. And what that'll do, and then we hit OK or Enter, and that'll take what we pasted up here, it'll remove the formatting, and instead of going from left to right, the data now goes from top to bottom. So let's go into cell F23, and we're going to use our friend the COUNTIF function. So we're going to do equals COUNTIF, open parentheses. We're going to select the range E23 down to E35, and we're going to lock it in. Very important to lock it in because we're going to be dragging it down this time. So we'll lock it in, then we'll do a comma, and our criteria is just going to be the cell to the left of the COUNTIF formula, and we are not going to lock that in. If you wanted to, though, you could lock the column, so hit F4, 3 times, and then close out our parentheses, hit enter. So we'll see the value 1 in cell F23, and then there's a couple ways that we can bring this formula down. So we can either use the fill handle to drag it down. So that's one option. We could do a Control Z, we could Control C or Command C, and then highlight down and do a Command V or Control V to paste. Or, because this is a continuous range, we can just double click the fill handle and it will go all the way down. Okay, so next what we're going to do is we're going to turn on a filter, which is something we haven't done before. So we're going to highlight from E22 down to F36, and then up in the ribbon we're going to go to the Data tab, and right here you'll see Filter. So we're going to turn the filter on, and then what we want to do is click the arrow in cell F22, and we want to filter this so we only see one. So now if, for example, you do have a duplicate, let's say we have 2 Julys, and you filter, and you say don't find 1, just find the number 2. Not cooperating, but here you go. So now we have 2, and that'll be the way to easily identify whether or not there's a duplicate within your data set. So let's Control Z, and now we are on to the HLOOKUP. We're ready to rock. Okay, so we're going to look at 2 different ways to do the HLOOKUP. First, we're going to look at a finite range, and second, we're going to look at an air quotes infinite range. And in both cases, we're going to be relatively hard coding the how far to go down portion of the formula, and we're going to remove that once we learn the match function. So in cell C6, you will see mar, which is the value that we want to look up in the first row. And in cell C7, you will see the number 2, which is how many rows we want to go down in the March column of our data set. So if we look at it visually, what we want to tell HLOOKUP to do is go over to the March column, which is right here, and then we want it to go down 1, 2 rows. So what we should expect to see when we do our formula is 8.2, which is the intersection of the row and the column. Now, because these formulas are a little bit more complicated, we're not going to talk through them as much just because they get a little bit hard to follow. So what we did do is include the formulas that we're going to use in columns E and G. So let's go to cell C8 and enter our first formula. So we're going to do equals HLOOKUP. And so again, first we're going to find the value that we want to look up. So we're going to go up to March in cell C6, and we're going to lock that in. And we're going to do a comma, and we're going to jump over to our BLS Data Series tab, and we're going to select from A1 all the way over to M11, and we're going to lock that in. So we'll give it a quick F4. Then we're going to do our row index number. So this is how many rows we want to go down. So we'll go back to our solution, or in your case, try it yourself tab, and we're going to select C7. We're going to lock that in. And then finally, we want to tell Excel whether or not we want a true or approximate match or false exact match. Almost always you're going to want to use false, and you don't have to put quotes around it. You can just type in false and then close our parentheses. Great. So in C8, as expected, we see 8.2, and this is the value that we were looking for. So again, if we go over, the formula looked for March in the first column of the range, the first row of the range rather, and then it went down 1 row and returned 8.2. So now if you wanted to change it, you could do something like this. You could search April and 4, and you would see 6.2. So let's quickly take a look at that. So if we did April and then went down 1, 2, 3, 4, we would see 6.2. Okay, so next what we're going to do is HLOOKUP again, but we're going to be using, again, air quotes, an infinite range. Any guess as to why using an infinite range might be a better option? If you guess that using an infinite row will avoid you having to change a formula if additional data is added, congrats! The formula for the infinite range is nearly identical to the finite range, with the only exception being that instead of selecting, in this case, A1 to M11 on the BLS Data Series tab, you will be selecting columns A to ZZ. And that's just what I tend to do. It can be A to Q if you want, whatever is enough to capture the data set and any sort of additional columns or rows that you think might be added. So let's go ahead and do that now, and it's really easy. You don't actually have to rewrite the formula, but if you click into the formula, you're going to select the range, you're going to delete that out, and then right from here you can go to the BLS Data Series tab. What I usually do is just do A, B, and then delete out the B, put in ZZ, and then hit F4 to lock that, and hit enter. And so again, we see 6.2, but the advantage of using this infinite range is that if all of a sudden data gets added in column R, with the infinite range it'll still be picked up, whereas if we just use that finite range, we stop looking at column M. Okay, now that we have an understanding of the HLOOKUP function, let's take a look at the match function, which will help take our HLOOKUP to the next level. The match function searches a range for a given value and then returns the relative position of that value in the range. Much like HLOOKUP, it will only return the first instance of a value, so in the event that there are duplicate values in the range, it will only return the position of the first one. In words, the match formula is equals match, open parentheses, the value you want to find, comma, the range you want to look at, comma, whether it should be an approximate or exact match, close parentheses. And once again, we are going to look at both the finite and infinite range with the match formula, and we're going to go ahead and do that in cell C12. So if we quickly look at C11, we see that we are going to look up the value 2012. So in C12, we're going to do equals match C11. We can lock that in. We don't have to lock it in. And then we're going to do the array, or the range, of A1 through A11. We'll lock that in. And then for the match, instead of doing a true-false, you're going to do a 1 or a 0. Again, we always tend to use 0. So if we put 0 in, close our parentheses, we get 2. So what that says is that the value 2012 is the second value in A1 through A12. So if we switch that to, say, 2021, we get 11. And just as a quick check, go down 11 rows, and we can see the 2021. Now for the infinite range piece, exact same concept. So we're going to go in, we're going to take out the BLS data series A1 through A11, and this time we're just going to select column A, and we'll lock that in, hit enter. Again, so we still get the same value, but now in the event that we add in data below row 11, we don't have to change our formula. We can still use the exact same formula, and it's ready for us right there. So hopefully the wheels are starting to turn and you are understanding a little bit of why we're introducing these two concepts together. So let's level up and combine the HLOOKUP and match formulas together. HLOOKUP is going to do most of the heavy lifting, and the match portion will make the formula more dynamic. So instead of needing to know exactly how many rows we want to go down, we can enter what we want to look for and then let match tell Excel how many rows to go down. Before we write the formula out, one thing to be very careful about when using lookups with multiple ranges is that the ranges always need to be the same length or width. As an example, if you select one range for the lookup and a shorter range for the match portion, the lookup will not work correctly because the match will return the relative position of the cell, which will not be what you are actually looking for. We will show that when we enter the formulas. So let's take a quick look at C15 and C16. So we want to look up MAR in the top row, and then we want to look up the 2012 row, and we're going to return the employment rate. So let's get started here. So as always, start with an equal sign. So then equals HLOOKUP, and we're going to start by looking up MAR. We'll go ahead and lock that in. And our array, or our range, we want it to be A11 through M11. We're going to lock that in. Now for the row index number, remember previously what we did is we would have done C16, but what we're going to do this time is we're going to put in match and then match C16. We're going to lock that. And then our lookup array or lookup range is going to be A1 down to A11. Lock that in. We're going to do 0 for the match type because we want it to be exactly the value we have in C16. We're going to close the parentheses on the match. And again, as you remember back to one of our earlier sessions, we have the nice color-coded parentheses to tell us where we are. And then we can also look here to see where we are in the formula. Then we'll put another comma to finish the HLOOKUP portion of the formula. And we're going to put in false there. So now we have 8.2, which is what we're expecting. So if we go back up here and we do MAR 2, we have 8.2. But now hopefully you're seeing this is a lot more dynamic. So for example, if I want to do DEIS of 2017, I don't have to worry about what row 2017 is. I can just pass these two arguments through the function, and we get 4.1. So let's do a quick check on that. So we have December, and then 2017, and we get 4.1. So exactly as what we had expected. Now, really quickly, I talked about ranges being the same length. So let's say, for example, in our match formula, instead of doing A1 through A11, we accidentally did A2 through A11. The value that gets returned is 4.7. So now if we look, 4.7 is actually the 2016 value in December. But because we shortened the range, it shifted it up so it didn't look and find the right cell that we were looking for. So the answer is technically right based on what the formula says, but it's not the answer that you're actually looking for. Okay, next we're going to go ahead and do our infinite range. And again, we're going to use the same general idea to change it from a finite to an infinite. So we'll select the A1 through M11 on the BLS data series. We're going to delete that out, jump over to the BLS data series tab, and we're going to do we'll do Z this time, lock it in. And then in the match portion of the formula, we're going to take out in this case, A2 to A11, which really should be A1 through A11. We'll delete that out, and then we'll select all of column A, lock that in, give it an enter, and we're back to that 4.1. So again, when these are combined, they are super useful, and we're going to use match in the next couple sessions and really kind of just try and show you how powerful this match function is, especially when it's combined with the different lookup functions. So two other things we want to touch on before we wrap up today. First is one that I can't actually show you, unfortunately, because of the limitations of Excel for Mac. But if you are on a PC and you go to the formulas part of the ribbon, you will see an option over in this area that allows you to evaluate the formula. And what evaluate formula does is it'll open up another window and allow you to look at each formula step by step. And it's a really useful tool, especially in these longer formulas. And hopefully I will have a session on that a little bit later once I get access to a PC and can do some recording there. And then lastly, one thing we want to talk about is adding or deleting rows, which is something we have not done yet. So adding and deleting rows is pretty straightforward, and this goes for columns as well. So let's say we wanted to get rid of columns E through G. All you'd have to do is select the columns that you want to delete, and then you can do Command minus on the Mac or Control minus on the PC. So we'll do Command minus, and those rows are deleted. And if we do Command Z or Control Z, they'll appear again. You could also right-click and delete. And then in order to insert columns, it's very similar, except you're just going to use the plus sign instead of the minus sign. So if we do we click there, we right-click, we can insert a column, then we can undo that, or we can do a Control-Shift equal sign to get the plus, and then we've added a row or a column. And again, like I said, the same thing is true for rows. So if you right-click a row, you can go ahead and insert a row, and then you can obviously also go in and delete the row. Insert it again, delete. Okay, so well done everyone. You just learned how to use the HLOOKUP and match functions. These are both extremely useful functions, and we will continue to build on these in future sessions. If you think we missed something or you want to see a certain topic we haven't covered yet, leave us a note in the comments section. To sum everything up, the HLOOKUP and match functions are extremely useful when you need to find data in large data sets that is at the intersection of a specific column and row. You can count on this session to help you understand how the HLOOKUP and match functions work both individually and together, and how they can be used with a data set. And let's keep taking your spreadsheet knowledge beyond what you thought was possible.